yes, quite shocked and sick. I think I found out at about 8 weeks, and the sonographer said, when she said, "I can see 3 babies," I said, "You're joking." And she said, "No." And then I swore. And I looked at my husband, just to see if he was going to say anything. He was speechless. He was absolutely white. We couldn't believe it. And then I started to think about the health risks to the babies and to me. And then immediately after that, I thought about, our finances and the logistics of looking after 3 babies. It was really hard to get my head round. You think about one baby, and you think, oh, and some people have twins, and that's all you think about. You don't think about any more than that. So it was really hard to get my head round, and I never really believed I had 3 babies in there until they were born. I just couldn't believe it. I remember saying to the sonographer, I was trying to correct her, and I was saying, "No, that's the same baby. That's the same baby." She was like, "No, it's a different baby. There are 3 babies." It was very difficult at the beginning. I was incredibly sick, and I was diagnosed with hyperemesis gravidarum, so extreme pregnancy sickness. So it was very hard. I had to lie down practically all the time. When I got up, I would be sick, and I would find it hard to stop. And I pulled muscles in my chest. I tore my esophagus. So it was quite nasty. And it was definitely the most physically challenging experience of my life. Just thinking every day I was sick, every single day for weeks. And I didn't know when it was going to stop. I mean, it was just after I missed my period, it started, and it went on to about 14 weeks. 14 weeks pregnant. And so I couldn't go to work. I couldn't do anything. I could hardly look after myself. And in the end, I was trying different medications that the doctors prescribed me, but they weren't working. And in the end, they said, "Right, you've lost too much weight. We're going to try one last sort of cocktail of medication. If it doesn't work, you're going to hospital." So I had 48 hours for it to work, and it did. But I did need to take medication for quite a lot of my pregnancy. Towards the end, I did stop it though. Yes, once I got the right medication, I really enjoyed my pregnancy. I could go out again. I was quite active before I got pregnant, so I couldn't retrain and do running because, of course, I was, I'd sort of wasted away for several weeks, and then I was carrying triplets. So I tried to just do gentle exercise like walking. And no, I really enjoyed the rest of my pregnancy. I got out again. I went to a class and met other parents of multiple, or expectant parents of multiples. But my favourite memory of being pregnant was eating. After I'd got, once the sickness had gone, I ate all the time. I was hungry all the time. So I really enjoyed going to Aquanatal. The first time I went there, I was scared that I was going to sink to the bottom of the pool because I felt quite big, and I hadn't been swimming since I got pregnant. But no, everything was fine, and I just loved being able to jump about and feel as light as a feather. I didn't feel pregnant at all, so it was really nice respite from being pregnant, and I really tried to take it easy. I made a mistake sort of maybe halfway through my pregnancy where I just thought, well, I can just do what I did before I was pregnant and go for, long walks into town and shop and then walk back. And I kind of got stuck one day where I'd just done too much and I was in town and realised, no, I've got to, if I'm going shopping, I can't walk to the shops. I have to get the bus and then do the shopping and then get the bus back. So just taking it easy is really important. I didn't really think about it. You just feel like yourself still, so you just do what you normally do, but actually you've got to really take it easy. I found the birth a real magical experience. I had them at 32 weeks exactly, and they were delivered by caesarean section. It was an emergency caesarean section because I had preeclampsia, so they suddenly said, right, we've got to get your baby's out today or tomorrow morning. And I was like, oh, okay. In the end, it was the next morning. And I mean, I'd always wanted to have a natural birth with no drugs and in a water birth. But when I found out I was having triplets, I thought, right, okay, well, goodbye to that. But I didn't mind. And I just went with it. I mean, the birth really was an amazing experience. You know, I had my husband right next to me. The anaesthetist was... I'd asked her, I said, I want to know exactly what's happening. And she explained everything and took pictures for us. And the room was just full of people. I think there were 18 staff members. And then there was me and Gerald, and then these three. And they were all really, really nice, really, and you could feel the excitement in the room. So it was nice to know that they were, you know, as excited as we were. And the process itself, I mean, I didn't feel anything. And it was just wonderful to hear their cries as each one came out, and each one was brought to us. This one came first, aren't you? You're the eldest. You're the eldest, aren't you? And you were the smallest. So Isabel was, you were just over 3 pounds. And she came out with her eyes open. She was brought to me, her eyes were open. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe at 32 weeks how perfect they looked, like proper babies. I know it sounds strange, but it wasn't something I was expecting. And then we had Joshua, and he was around 4 pounds. They all come to you sort of wrapped up, and he needed a bit of oxygen, but they could all breathe on their own. And then we had Sophia. I thought it was really important for me to rest as much as I could afterwards, as I just felt that I wouldn't be able to look after my babies if I wasn't well. And I don't know if it's because I had preeclampsia. It did take a while to heal, for my incision to heal, and I did have an infection, and I was prescribed antibiotics for that. But I just sort of kept the faith, as you have to all the time with the babies, that, you know, it would get better, and it did. And each day everything improved. And I had a routine of, once I was discharged, I would spend my morning, I'd have like a lazy morning, resting and recovering, and I was actually expressing milk as well. And then after lunch, I'd go in and spend the rest of the day with the babies. And I think that was a really good balance, because I don't think I could have sort of been with them all day and got the proper rest that I needed to recover. And a hospital chair isn't the most comfortable thing. So it takes time, but everything healed, really, really well. So when we brought our babies home, we really wanted to have, the baby moon period, and we wanted to be on our own for that. We kind of thought we were a bit crazy, because we knew we were going to have 3 babies to look after, but I think we both felt it was important, because we wanted to decide how we did things. My husband he delayed his paternity leave until after the babies came home. So we thought it was kind of be a waste if, when they were in Skaboo. So he had his paternity leave when we brought the babies home. And I think we had a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks together, just on our own, deciding how we're going to do things, working things out as well, as you go along. And then, we did have family round to see the babies and help. I mean, it's the night feeds, isn't it, that you really want to have help with. And it was really full on in those first few months. But I think my husband he had 2 weeks paternity leave, and then he took another 2 weeks sort of holiday, and so we had 4 weeks in total, and we needed all of that, actually. And by the time he went back to work, after then I felt confident that I could be looking after them during the day. We had, we still have Home Start. I have a volunteer who comes every week for 2.5 hours, and it's really invaluable. And I'd arranged it before the babies came, so that meant that we had a volunteer in place for, it was when my husband went back to work, actually, so it was just perfect timing. And at the beginning, it was just, I tended to just nap when my Home Start volunteer came around, so she could sort of look after the babies and I could have a rest. And I think that was really valuable at the beginning, and it's changed, as the babies have got older and needed different things, and I've needed different things. Now, I go out with the babies, but it's just so nice to have someone there as well who can help take them out. I mean, when I go out, I tend to walk them in the pushchair. But with my Home Start volunteer, I can drive out. It's just easier to get out, when you've got to get the big buggy out of the car and that sort of thing, get each baby in. And then you're also worried, even in a car park, you're worried about cars going past. And, I can't be there looking at the buggy all the time. I need to get the babies out. So it's really lovely to have my volunteer with me. But I really recommend Home Start. I'm so glad I had my volunteer. Well, I was really determined to breastfeed my babies. I always wanted to breastfeed a baby, and I thought, just because they're triplets, does that mean they don't get to have that, and I don't get to have that? So I really wanted to do it, but I knew it would be difficult, and it might not be possible. I didn't know how the labour would go, how I would be afterwards. Kind of who knows. But I wanted to know that I would do my best. I felt okay after the labour, so I got started quite soon after, and I asked a staff member to show me what to do, and she provided me with sort of small syringes, and showed me the way to hand express. So there was just that at the beginning, and I think it was a few hours maybe after the birth, so it started from there, and just hand expressing just really, really tiny small amounts, and apparently this is the colostrum, but they call it liquid gold. It's really good for the baby. So, but it just comes out in tiny drops, and I knew that it was going to take time, but I thought, I'm not going to worry about the amount. I'm just going to keep going. It will just build up, and it did build up. So we started with hand expressing, and my husband was really supportive. He would actually hand express one side while I did the other side. So it started off hand expressing, and then I think the next day or maybe the day after, I moved on to a hospital grade electric pump, a dual electric pump, and I just kept going. I kept going with that, and that had a premature baby setting, which I used. I think I expressed when I got up, and then sort of mid to late morning, early afternoon, late afternoon, before I went to bed. So that's 5 times in the day. And then I'd get up once in the middle of the night, around 3 o'clock, to express. And later on, I found out that your oxytocin levels are highest between 2 and 4 in the morning. So it's really good to express them because it helps boost your supply. So I just kept going with the expressing. My babies were born at 32 weeks, so they couldn't suck yet. So, I sort of held them to me, but nothing much happened. So it was very much about the expressing, but the ways in which I found help boost the supply was being with my babies when I expressed. Skaboo would, they'd let me set up next to my babies. I could, be with them, watch them while I was expressing. When I was expressing at home, I would look at photos of them. And this was based. I did this because of advice given to me by lactation specialists at the Skaboo. So gradually my supply built up, and I think my babies might have been 2 or 3 weeks old, and they started to, I could start to breastfeed them, and it was challenging because they don't just do it, and I think even full-term babies often don't just do it. So it did take a while. And so we were doing what we did was I would breastfeed a baby, and then we would top up with a tube feed. I'd have to judge how much tube feeding that they needed, which was quite difficult because you don't know how much milk they're really getting from you. But we could tell by their weight. So Skaboo were really good about weighing them. So we knew, okay, they've lost weight, a little bit of weight. Okay, they need to have more top-ups. So that helped us judge. I mean, there's no real science to it. But, and of course with, bottle feeding, you actually see how much they're getting. But I still really wanted to breastfeed, and I thought, well, I'll keep the faith, keep going. We'll weigh them, then we'll know if they're getting what they need. And I mean, the babies were really different. Joshua, he learnt very quickly, and he's always been a really efficient feeder. He was so efficient that he would just drink so much and then throw up because it was just too much. Whereas my girls were much more sleepy feeders. And they needed top-ups for quite a while. I realised also, I mean, it was quite... I think I had some sessions that took 2 hours to feed all three. This is obviously early days, 2 hours, and then I'd have an hour's or break, and then I'd have to start again. So it was really intensive. And I thought, how am I going to do this when the babies come home? And during the day, that's fine. I'm happy to breastfeed all day, but I can't do it at night because, obviously I need to sleep. So I needed to work out something that was sustainable. And I think that's when I decided, okay, we need to introduce a bottle so that I could put my expressed, I had lots of milk stored at the hospital, so expressed breast milk in the bottle, so that at night we could give bottles of my milk. My husband then could be involved. I wasn't then worried. I could see how much they were getting, because it was tricky, and it was tricky at the beginning. I couldn't feed two at the same time, and I'd heard the advice to make sure you establish breastfeeding with each baby individually first. And I thought, oh no, I want to save time. I'll just do two at the same time. No, it just didn't work. My girls were very sleepy. I would have to keep changing their position, taking off items of clothing to kind of wake them up and stimulate them. And then they would go to sleep, and you think, oh, but you need to feed. So it really worked for us doing the breastfeeding, plus with the girls, it was the top-ups of breast milk via bottle, and then at night it was bottles for all three of my milk. We gradually, I mean, this is why Skaboo was so great, and with the homeward bound room where we could stay, we gradually went from basically being completely dependent on the staff of Skaboo to us, we gradually sort of transitioned to looking after all three babies all day, all through the night, and then we're ready to go home. And when we went home, so I was breastfeeding during the day with the top-ups for the girls, and then the bottles of my milk in the night. And so you'd have, I think it was 3 night feeds. 3 night feeds with the bottles. And then after each night feed, I had to then, of course, express, because I wanted to trick my body into thinking that I had breastfed. And oh gosh, I do remember thinking though, will I ever be able to just breastfeed? Will I ever not have to give the top-ups to the girls? And in a way, when I look back, when I look at the dates, it didn't actually last very long, but it felt like a long time, at the time. So it was definitely, there were lots of challenges at the beginning, with the prematurity of the babies, the sleepiness of my girls. But actually, it didn't last long in the grand scheme of things. I think by the time they were about 3 or 4 months, I could breastfeed two at the same time very easily using a twins feeding pillow. And it became easy, gone with the 2-hour feeding sessions, gone with the top-ups. I could feed them all sort of, each baby would take 10 minutes or even less sometimes. And at night we gradually dropped the bottles, and I just breastfed them if they woke up. And it became really easy. And so I was so pleased. I remember thinking, because there were days when I just thought, oh, is it ever going to get easier? And I just kept the faith, yes, it will. And I had my husband who's really supportive, and the staff at Skaboo and my health visitor, they just said it will get easy. And I just thought, right, I'm just going to keep that in my head and just keep going. And it did get easier. And it's I found it to be a very practical means of feeding them. I don't need any equipment when we go out. I can go out very easily because I can just feed them. I don't need anything. So I'm really pleased that I've kept going with it. We have an ABC triple adventure buggy. So that's a buggy it's like a twin buggy. So 2 seats side by side with a seat on top as well. So it's kind of like a tower buggy. And of course you get really noticed for that because no one's ever seen one of those before. And it's fabulous. I can go out with it on my own. It's narrow enough to go on buses. Sometimes needs a bit of a shove, but it's really good if you want to go out on your own. And sometimes we take the top seat off, and so the baby we put the baby in a sling. So we have just the twin and with 2 babies, and then 1 baby in a sling. I always, we always wanted to be able to go out. So when we had the buggy ready before the babies came so that we could, and we went out for a little walk quite early on, but it took a while before I was going out on my own, because of course I was breastfeeding, and that's all I did at the beginning, and sort of establishing naps. There was no time in our schedule to go out, but I was patient because I thought it will come. And then I think the babies were about 4 months old when I took them out to their first group. It was a twins and multiples group, and I'm still going to that now. And it's amazing how, I remember not going out at all now I go out every day. So that's what I want to say to other parents of multiples, that you will get there. There's life after triplets. But I always make sure that I have a bag, the baby bag, ready. It's always packed and ready to go. So actually, people in the street say, "Oh, how do you get out?" And it's not that bad actually. Once I've made a decision, right, we're going out, it's like a whirlwind. It's just like change all their nappies, got the bag that's ready, put them in the buggy, and out we go. So it doesn't take as long as what people imagine. A lot, and lots of comments, lots of personal comments and questions like, are they IVF babies and things like that. So I don't know, I think I'm quite used to it. And I know that, that's not going to last forever anyway, because the babies will grow up and no one will know that they're triplets just by looking at them. So I'm kind of thinking, well, I'll enjoy it, while it lasts. But yes, sometimes, if you're in a hurry and people are stopping you, you're not in the mood to talk. So I just don't make eye contact when I'm in one of those moods, or when I just need to get somewhere quickly. And most people can judge by your body language that you don't want to talk. But I don't know, even some people who could say things that you think, oh, if you really thought about that, that's actually quite rude. I still think that they're doing it they're just interested, and they think it's wonderful. Wow, you've got triplets. So I think it's their way of saying that you've got wow, lovely babies. But there are people who say, God, that must be a nightmare, or oh, unlucky you. But I just think I feel so lucky, so I don't care what they think. Well, at the beginning, it was definitely the sleep deprivation. But I think there are ways to work around that. My husband and I, we worked as a team, and I think, we could always sense when the other person was starting to lose it and starting to get quite desperate. And then we kind of take over. I remember once, this is quite early on, and I said, I just would love to have more than 1 hour's sleep. It was just a bad period we seemed to be going through. And that was a time when my husband got up and he did all the night. Well, it was the one night feed, but he did all 3 babies and he didn't wake me up, and I felt fabulous after that. So it's kind of we work together, And I think even if you're on your own, I think it's definitely possible, but you just need some support from someone, and just knowing when, okay, I'm starting to need a bit of help. So yeah, sleep deprivation was difficult, but could be managed. My Home Start volunteer really helped with that. And gosh, what else? Oh, when they're ill, that is really hard, especially when you're ill at the same time. And I think we were quite lucky in that they didn't have anything until they were 7 months. Not one snotty nose, and then that was it. It was just like one thing after the other. Colds, and they had bronchiolitis, then I was, at the beginning, I seemed to be getting colds as well at the same time, and all I wanted to do was lie on the sofa, and I couldn't. And just when you need more sleep, and they need more sleep to recover, no, they have less sleep when they're ill. Most people, well, adults seem to go to sleep when they're ill, but no, babies don't. They're awake and they're grumpy, and when you're tired and grumpy and ill too, it's hard. But when they're not ill, it's so much fun. So that makes up for it. I think it's really important that you have confidence in yourself and how you want to do things. That doesn't mean that you know what you want to do when the babies come. I mean, I didn't. We brought our babies home, and then we decided how we were going to do things. That was a bit trial and error, of course, when we realised the babies didn't like that, but it's, I think, and everyone means it. Everyone's so well-meaning. They see that you've got triplets and they all want to give you their advice. But actually, it's quite hard because people have lots of different kind of conflicting advice. So we were like, no, we're gonna do this ourselves. We're going to decide how we want to do things, and we're going to stick to that. And I think it's really important that you have confidence in how you want to run things, and don't worry about what people are saying, because there are so many different ways of parenting, and it's not about what's right and wrong. You have to do what's best for you and your babies, and eventually you will know your babies better than anyone else. I mean, of course, when they arrive, they're like lovely little strangers to you, but you get to know them, and you will know your babies better than everyone else. So I would just say, have confidence in what you decide to do. Well, before the babies came, I went to a Preparing for Parenthood seminar, and at the seminar I met a lady who has triplets. And after the seminar, we arranged to meet her children, and it was really good to meet someone with triplets before the babies came. I know my husband, it really increased his confidence, I think, thinking we can do this, and to see a family where I think the triplets were just under 2 years old, but they made it over the newborn part, the difficult few months, and they were really happy, and we thought, right, we can do this. So I think it was important to meet someone beforehand. I'm the only triplet mummy there, but I don't think that really matters. It's lovely to meet mums with twins, because it's more than one baby, at the same time. So a lot of the challenges are the same. And I've been going regularly to that.